Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to take a brief pause on my empath summer series and talk about grief. And I'm already feeling like I am resistant. I was even resistant on coming on here today. Saturday was Jack's birthday, and he would have been 14. And I just wanted to share my experience and talk with you about what I've learned on my grief journey, in hopes that like everybody on some level has experienced grief, and it has been it's been 5.5 years since he died. And it's totally wild because it's this whole space-time mind fuckery, quite honestly. And not a day goes by that I don't think about him, and that I don't wish with everything in my heart that things were different. And even like 5.5 years later, when I talk about him, my eyes are going to fill with tears, because I will never stop loving him. And that is one of the main things that I've learned with grief, and it hurts my soul to hear that there are people that are grieving and they're like, oh, well, here's 2 days of grief leave and now you got to be back at work. Like, that's not how it works, like, at all. And I always say that grief is like an ocean, and some days are going to be tsunamis, right? Like at the beginning there was, it was like one tsunami after another, after another, after another. And then, and now, like I said, 5.5 years later, it is a different type of, ocean. Like, some days are the tsunamis, and some days it's just wavy, and some days it's calm, but I'm always in that ocean of grief, because grief is love. And, every year it is different, because I don't know why. I can't even tell you why, right? But like last year, it was like weeks before his birthday, and then it happens again on the anniversary that he died. But it's like it's kind of like this big I don't know if you've ever seen like the visual of like a tsunami, and like the tide pulls out, right? And it's like, that's how I feel. Like last year, I think it was just like weeks before, right? And then like when it was fresh, it was like the whole summer had a cloud around it. And then this year I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like, I didn't really kind of get hit with that pulling out of like the tide receding until like a few days before. And so, what I've learned is that I have to let everything happen organically. I'm generally not on social media anyway on the weekends, but I was like, I just needed to I need to contain my energy. I need to, really be as present as possible. And the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, has been such a great gift. If you haven't read that book, like, go read it. It's awesome. And it's all about, the whole concept is that if that time equals suffering. And so if you're constantly living in the past, you're going to create all of this suffering and pain and regret and remorse and depression. And if you are in the flip, like, thinking about the future and future tripping, it's going to create anxiety and worry and like kind of keep you frozen because you don't want to move forward, right? And so what happens with grief is that it's like, I can't help but dip back in there. That's part of the PTSD. That's part of the trauma. I'm like totally reading this it's side note, totally awesome book that it's called The Witching Hour by Anne Rice, who wrote Interview with a Vampire, and it's all about witches in New Orleans, and like it's really good. But there's this one part where I'm like getting really like triggered, and then all of a sudden my brain is not reading the book and it's going back to Jack in the hospital and all this stuff, and I have to like take a deep breath in and just breathe and make sure that I come back to that present moment. And you know, you could do all the healing in the world, and essentially what happens is it really comes back to being in that present moment and taking deep breaths. And so like I said, like I let the birthday and the weekends and the anniversaries kind of happen organically, and surround myself with people who are going to lift me up. And, you know, and if it's nobody, it's nobody. And I just kind of let the day go with kind of like the flow, you know, and so, you know, I just wanted to share this with you because grief isn't linear. Life is a series of deaths and rebirths, and maybe it's, you know, it's like sometimes they're literal, like what I went through with Jack, and sometimes it's figurative, right? And healing is messy and it's painful, and you know, and it's very, very tender, you know, and you know, and people would text or email or whatever and see how I was doing. And, you know, it was just like this year, I was very tender, and I was very introspective, and I still am, you know, and it's like, it's just how it is. And as always, it is about looking for those signs, right? Because just because he's not physically here doesn't mean that he's no longer here. He's in energetic form. I mean, that's just basic science. It's like we're liquid, solid, and gas, right? And right now he's gas. And if you knew him, he would think that's really, really funny. And so, you know, it's like looking for these signs also to know that, you know, your loved one is around. And, you know, people always ask me, like, did you get signs from Jack? Like, what were they this year? You know, that kind of thing. And he always shows up big around his birthday and around the anniversary. And I had dinner plans, like Rob and I had dinner plans on Friday night with another couple friends of ours. And we're like, me and my girlfriend were like super excited to go to this dinner. And and it was at like 5:00 because it was like a great restaurant that nobody could get into, right? So we're like, great, we'll take it. And then about 4:00 on Friday, I get a call from the restaurant, and they said, hey, we're shutting down because one of the staff was exposed, and we all are going to get tested, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, that sucks. And he's like, you know, we could accommodate you tomorrow. But I was like, no, tomorrow's Jack's birthday. I'm not doing anything remotely like that at all. And so I was like, okay. And so I went on Open Table, that app, and I just like pulled up like what is available at like 5:00, like in an hour, you know. And one restaurant was available, which is a restaurant that is ridiculously hard to get into. And they had one availability at 5:15 for 4 people. And you know what the name of the restaurant was? The Whale Wins. So that I knew was Jack showing up, because he shows up to me with whales, and that's our connection. And so I was like, all right, bud, guess we're going here. And yeah, and so that's what I want to leave you with today. So yeah, thanks for being with me as I share this ever evolving grief journey. All right. Mwah. Love you. Bye.